Okay, we are recording now, and I wanted to welcome everybody. Laurent is on. It's evening for him. It's morning for those of us on the West Coast, and some of you are varying degrees of late morning or afternoon, early afternoon. Want to go over the rules real quickly, then introduce Frank, who will then introduce Brad and Laurent. So many of you have been on these calls before, I see. And I know this because you've already started populating the chat. The chat is the perfect place to list what wines you're drinking and discuss them while we have this presentation. And as I've said before, they get fun, they get lively. And that way you feel like you're actually participating, even though you are muted at the moment. So discuss your wines that you've got, and you can actually send private messages to people as well if you have directed messages you want to place. Now again, everyone's muted, and when Frank and Brad speak and Laurent gives us this wonderful tour that we've got planned, we will then open it up afterward for a little Q&A. So when we do the Q&A, there's a function on Zoom that's called raise hand, and so while we are on the presentation, take some time to find that. Don't use it yet. Wait it out, and then once we get to the Q&A, I can call on you, and you will be unmuted, and you will show on the screen, and you can ask Laurent or anybody else the question, and then I can lower the hand and go to the next person. Last thing is with the view. So you have two options. Those of you who are on computers have gallery view and speaker view. I'm recording this in speaker view so that the main person is the one that you see most on screen. But if you prefer to see a larger variety of people, like small pictures of everybody, you want to choose gallery view for that. And that's usually on the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Frankie now.
Thank you, Frenchie. And again, thank you for providing the platform to do this and helping me be my execution partner of all this great content that we've been creating for the past 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been a blast. Like I said, I'm getting used to drinking on Saturdays, and I haven't told anybody about that because I don't want to besmirch my fine reputation and brand capital that I've worked so hard to create. Thank you all for pausing this morning in your lives, whatever's going on with them. We're all kind of uniformly joined by this crisis that we're in, whether we're in France or Michigan or LA. We're all finding ways to figure it out. And so the way that we've decided to help contribute and give back was to do these events. And I've been excited for all of them that we've done for different reasons. And this one as well, because I have my glass of 2013 Grand Cellar d'Or open. I poured and opened last night, which I almost damn near finished all of it because it's so good. I have a little left for today, so I'm enjoying that. And as you want to put into the chat what you're drinking, share that with us too. Ironically, Laurent, I would have been on an airplane to Charles de Gaulle today for 2 weeks to celebrate my 20th wedding anniversary, and more than likely have been coming by to see you, but those plans have been canceled now for about 2 months, so I feel like I'm still getting to visit with you, even though I'm not quite there. So good morning and evening to you.
Good morning, Frank. I can imagine your feelings. So first of all, hello to everybody. Welcome to La Montagne. I'm not a magician. I'm just try to be a winemaker. So maybe through this exchange, through this 1 hour talking, maybe you will feel just better after. It's not exactly if you come there, but it's a kind of that, okay? So I'm so happy to offer you this. And first of all, I do hope that you, your family, and all your guests who are following us tonight are in good feet, safe, and with their all people that they love anyway.
Thank you, Laurent. And Brad, also welcome to you today looks like from your cellar there in Michigan. So how are you today?
Well, cold but good. It's always a bit odd in the spring when your cellar is warmer than it is outside. But we might hit 50 degrees today, so that's okay. I can see Laurent. We can talk about champagne, so I'm happy.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being our wisdom and our guru through the material today too. And I know you have a long deep relationship with Laurent going back. So I'm going to honor that today and let you do most of the talking. I do have, though, queued up, I've got our friend from Google Map ready to go so we can show people where we've been and where we are. And then I have the vineyard visuals that you've given me that we can use too when you're ready for me to share those with you and the audience. And to the audience, I welcome you today. There's a number of faces from Instagram who are on today. Thank you for coming on with the Wine Berserker community. And I hope some of you that are in the small little thumbnail squares can introduce yourselves to each other and make some new relationships today. So with that, and in good tidings, I send it over to you, Brad, and you let me know when you want me to do some sharing.
All right, so I guess I'll do our opening sabrage here. So I've got my 2001 Quarter Cuvee, which I wanted to check in on, because if anybody can do good things in 2001, you're a genius, and Laurent did good things in 2001. So let me line this up here, and we're gonna, well, hopefully go. Maybe not. Maybe it got too warm. I'm not doing so well.
Yeah, the last time it took Brad like 2 seconds, one swipe, boom, done.
Well, now it's gonna go. It's cracked off. We're gonna just let it go on its own. I don't know if you guys can see. I'll keep talking. The cork's kind of coming out. I've got glass going a few places here. Well, it will pop on its own at some point.
We don't need to call the 911, okay? Let's just make sure you're safe there.
So I learned that I cannot take it out of the freezer and put my hand on the neck for 5 or 6 minutes and warm it up.
Okay.
All right, not a great beginning, but that's okay because we got Laurent that we can talk to, and I got to really hope it pops off at some point here.
Maybe a small secret, Brad. Vilmart bottle maybe prefer to be open in a soft way, delicate way, rather than I don't know, but it's oh, well done.
This one went
was
okay.
A challenging one. Okay, so it's cool.
And we have 95 creation as well, so we got plenty of Ilmar.
Cool.
So Laurent, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I think it's no secret that I love your wines. I think you're one of the best vine growers and winemakers in Champagne. I have more Vilmart in my cellar than any other producer. I think if you want to use Bordeaux as a reference, if there was a first growth in Champagne, you would be one of those 5. So that's how highly I think of your work. And I think to start out with, it'd be good for you to give everybody, I think, an overview of, the history of Vilmart, where you've come from, because I think a lot of people, they know Vilmart for Quarter Cuvée, the fact that you use oak, that the wines taste so good, but they forget that you were really the first in a lot of movements in work in the vineyards, in grower prestige cuvées, and a lot of things that you've done have really been revolutionary, even though you didn't stand on top of the hill and yell it out to everybody. You've done it humbly, silently, with excellent work. And I hope people can understand and learn more about Vilmart through this hour. So maybe let's start by just kind of going through the history and some of the things that you and your family have done. I think that'd be great. We can go through the vineyards and some of the other winemaking practices that you have.
Sure, Brad. So let me introduce you, Vilmart. So do you allow me just in the same time, just to show you, oh, still alive, just to show you a little bit more details about Vilmart. So we can start not necessarily by the vineyards today, but mainly by, I can show you this. We, just before to start, to let you know that Vilmart House is a 5-generation Champagne house. So it's my great-grandfather, Désiré Vilmart, who settled this house. So just 5 generations in Montagne de Reims. This, you can imagine that during more than 1 century now, we had the time to establish. We are very lucky because we are in the north place of Montagne de Reims, but with a south exposition of on 50% of our land. And this makes like a paradox because Vilmart, instead to have the normal grapes variety like 80% Pinot Noir and Meunier and 20% Chardonnay, we are at the opposite ratio. We have 60% Chardonnay
He's cutting in now, Brad.
and 40% future wine. And this is so important. And this grapes variety, Chardonnay, is so important for Vilmart. It's certainly, it's linked with our specific winemaking, because we are now for 5 generations making all our wines 100% through large oak cask winemaking for the non-vintage, like Grande Réserve and Grand Cellier. So it ferment champagne, because classically it's more your ferment in stainless steel tank. And for the vintage, for Vilmart, I ferment and aged in 220 liters, like Burgundy barrels, all the vintage, like Grand Cellier d'Or, Cœur de Cuvée, Blanc de Blanc, and Grand Cellier Ruby. This is very important. In my head, in my spirit, I think that the two main abilities for a good winemaker or winegrower is patience and humility. And thank you so much, Brad, for everything you say or you said about Vilmart. It's so kind from you. But humility and patience is so important, because this is why I let the time to my grape juice, to my still wine, 10 months in wood from the harvest until the bottling, which is generally beginning July. So it needs time, it takes time for the right integration between the wood, the wine, and the micro-oxygenation. And maybe the third step of Vilmart is that I never do the malolactic fermentation, just to keep the finesse, the freshness, the tension of the wine. And maybe you can just hear this very small noise. It's temperature control. Everything is just outside temperature control. And like this, I can have a normal, right and wise maturation. So after, today we can't go downstairs in the cellar because we have no network, no Wi-Fi downstairs. But you can imagine that we aged for minimum 2 to 3 years for the non-vintage, and 5, 6, 7, 8 years for the vintage. Another step, 5, 6 years ago, I wanted to improve, and to change a little bit the maturation of reserve wine. So in this new large oak cask room, I aged my Chardonnay still wine for 2 extra years for the future blend of the Grand Cellier. And this just to give more complexity, more structure to my wine. And again, it's a question of time. I hope we will keep network there. And this is just to show you like this for future cuvee, like the Blanc de Blanc is made in this very special barrels. So I hope you can have a better view, maybe a better feeling about Vilmart. And this, now I am going just to I could say maybe the new step of Ilmar, because we have the tradition, the history, the vines, the winemaking is so important. And I wanted to link the past, the present, and the future. And I wanted to create a very, very special space, just to take time, feel peaceful, and just as the right atmosphere for tasting Vilmart wines. So this is Enotech number 5. We'll go there just after for looking a few bottles. And this new place we call Vilmart Lounge is just the place now for tasting. And you can see how vines is very important. You have the 2 kinds of pruning. There, the Chablis, of course, for mainly Chardonnay, and there, the Cordon de Royal. So this is just maybe to warm up your mind and heart just before the tasting. Okay. So, okay. So, voilà. It was just for a small tour, a small a feeling of the heart of Vilmart.
No, that's excellent. I mean, for everybody to be able to see where you work and all the hard work that you've put into create something that is really expressive of you and your family and of your vines, of your wines. The new tasting room, the new lounge is utterly gorgeous and brilliant. So if any of you are in Champagne, you need to stop by and say hello. It's such a bright, relaxing atmosphere to taste in. I guess a question I have for you is, if we go into the vine growing, I think one of the things people don't know is that your family actually was one of the first in Champagne to really look into biodynamics, to look into organic farming, you know, reasoned viticulture. And I know you've kind of found your way over time to let each vintage or each harvest and each growing season be its own kind of living entity, and you adjust towards it. But I think it's important for people to understand, I guess, how much hard work you do in the vineyards, because that's really where your great wines start, and not enough people pay attention to the vineyard work that you do and that Vilmart has always done, at least in my opinion.
True, Brad. I was remembering maybe a few years ago, just a small thought in my mind. I was just thinking that, of course, my great-great-grandfather started in 1890. My grandfather was born in 1904, and my father came in the 70s. And in the 70s, you can imagine how was harder the world, because they have not the same technology, not the same equipment. And my father made himself his compost, trying to learn viticulture and the vine, the treatments. And I was just thinking that it was in 1970, 1975, the first, one of the first winegrower to be biodynamic. He started to produce in larger cask. You can imagine that in the 1970 harvest, he brought the 5 first large oak cask you saw during the harvest, and people saw that in the village, because they move the barrels with just a small piece of food, and people should just think this guy is totally crazy. He's crazy. And in the same time, in 1975, with just 3 or 4 friends, he was making and creating the first prestige cuvee of Vilmart, which was the Grand Cellier, with like a shape of today. So you can imagine 40 years ago or 50 years ago. So he was really in advance on that. And moreover, we are 5 generations. I have the pleasure to be the 5th generation, but my father was not a winegrower or a winemaker. He was a carpenter and a man of the wood, and he was more and a writer, if you want. So it was just that, and it takes a lot of time. It takes maybe several generations to build this, of course, this history, this feeling of the nature. Because always I say, we are not the master. I'm absolutely not the master. The mother nature is the first master, because she gives exactly what she wants, and we have just to adapt, to try to do our best. And this year we are very in advance. It seems to be in a very nice way, despite the very, very strange, stressful period we are all living. But my viticulture, I could say today, is more a viticulture of adaptation, which means that every year it's like a new page, and I try just to see how is the maybe the year. We don't use chemical feeding, just organic feedings, no herbicide, just plowing. So you can imagine how plowing has evolved and improved now for 5 generations. So I think it's easier today anyway to run our vineyards because we have more techniques, we have more equipment, and we try anyway to respect the most the soil, the vine, the environment, and the human. This is why we are high value environment, viticulture durable, and Pelos. But the goal and the point is to try to get the best quality at the harvest anyway. And for that, Vilmart philosophy is maybe like a link between A to Z. So very high respect for the vineyards, for the grapes. And for the pressing, we are still using a traditional press, 40 years old, a Coquard press, everything per gravity, no oxidation, no pumping, and just per gravity. And after only one pumping after the first racking to go to the larger cask and the small barrels, and for the first alcoholic fermentation, for the 10 months of maturation, for the bottling, etc., and all the aging and the maturity and the maturation in our cellars. And what is, I think, very, can't say maybe stressful, but what you have to be very, very careful. You can't miss one step. You have to be very good from A to Z, because if you miss one step, you can lose your wine anyway. But this is the challenge of our wine. And after, I can tell you only one thing: I make it not for myself, but just for sharing it with everybody, and to try to give a little bit joy to everybody.
No, very good. So Frank, now's probably a good time to kind of put up the vineyard so everyone can know where Laurent and Vilmart are located and where Rilly-la-Montagne is at. So Laurent's vineyards are primarily in Rilly-la-Montagne and also a little bit in Villers-Allerand. So I guess if Frank can put the map up and kind of walk us through, and then once we get to the vineyards, Laurent, if you can kind of explain where exactly you're at with your vines and what cuvées come from each one, because I think it's fascinating the way that your wines really are blended in the vineyard and not in the winery, at least for the vintage wines.
Sure. As I told you, we are in a small village called Rilly-la-Montagne, around 170, 180 meter high. And you can see on the north, we have Reims, and on the south, we have Épernay. And Montagne de Reims, the green forest you can see is just between the north and the south. And we are just at the bottom of Montagne de Reims, and which is very interesting and very lucky for Vilmart. It took maybe 3 generations to get that. We have 11 hectares, which means we should have 90 plots, but we have only 12 plots, which is very unusual. And all this domain of Vilmart should be spread out of maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different villages. And it's only spread out of 2 villages and just 800 meters from the house. So on this map, you can see Les Blanchevoies, which is, I could say, north side, but it's 50% of our vineyard, and it's south exposition, which is unusual in Rilly-la-Montagne, because most of the vineyards in Rilly-la-Montagne is east exposition and north exposition. And we are so lucky because we have 50% of our vineyard on the south exposition with very chalky soil, you have pure chalk, just minus 30 centimeter. And this very heaven space is called les blanchevoies, like a white waste, which means the soil is really rich in chalk. On the other side, where you can see, so number one is les blanchevoies. Number two and number three, just there, east exposition is les ébarbettes et les grèves. This is a little bit more sandy, a little bit clay and chalk. And this, just to let you know, just to try to be clear, blanchevoie, I make cœur de cuvée, grand cellier d'or, and blanc de blanc in blanchevoie. In les ébarbettes et grèves, I make mainly the grand cellier. It's east face, where you have the sun all the day, and it gives just purity, a little bit richness to my Chardonnay and freshness in the same time. For the Champs d'Andouille, number 4, Ramouillette, it's more Pinot Noir. There I use for the Grand Reserve, our non-vintage champagne, where it's a little bit more clay, something very fruity, deep. And one interesting thing, maybe I have not noticed on the map, but just on the north side on your left, close to Villers-Alran, it's on Villers-Alran, we have les Bermonts, Chardonnay parcels. And this I use for Grand Reserve. So it's very interesting because I can pick the grapes 1 week later than Rie-la-Montagne, because Rie-la-Montagne, it ripes faster than les Bermonts, because we are on north face on very clay soil. So if you understand, it makes like a palette of parcels, and I can choose, I can take the grapes I want to make every and each cuvée. That I have never played with a parcellaire, which means I didn't want for a long time to use parcellaire to put on each cuvée. So today I use only for Blanc de Blanc, for Blanchevoie, just to try maybe to explain and to make a little bit more sensitive. So I hope it's clear enough.
Yeah, so Laurent, what is the plot you use to make the Grand Cellier Ruby, or the new name Cuvée Emotion? Because that's right on the border of Rilly and Villers-Alran as well, correct? Correct.
I use the Chardonnay of Les Blanchevois for Grand Cellier Ruby or for the new emotion, and I use the 60% of Pinot Noir on Les Rosières,
Okay.
So you let me. Can I show you something?
Sure.
Is it possible? Okay, thank you. Try to show you this. Sorry, okay. It's not a map you have the ability to see, but okay, this you can just imagine. It's you are on north face. There is just Reims, and this the village of Villers-Alran, and this we call les Rosières, and it's just a beautiful place where you are 180 meters high, and you have like 260 degrees view, which is absolutely fantastic on Rie-la-Montagne, just Montagne de Reims on your backside, and just in front of you the town of Reims. Voilà. Just next time we will go maybe in the vineyard, just maybe to feel a little bit the atmosphere. So yeah. To reply to your question, Brad, Chardonnay comes from Blanchevoie and Pinot Noir comes from Les Rosières.
No, excellent. And I think it's important, as you pointed out, that you only have 12 parcels. Most people are used to having 3 or 4 rows, spread across so many vineyards. And if you ask any, good quality grower, winemaker, they'll say the hardest part about doing good work in the vines is that if everything is spread out, you can't be everywhere at once. And so many people will do their best work in a few vineyards right near the winery or near the house. and you have everything less than a kilometer apart. I mean, it's just amazing how blessed you and your family are that you have wonderful land and you have the ability to take care of everything. And I think that also is one of the reasons why I think your wines are so good, and that people need to understand that, that's a big advantage that I think you have, because you're able, if need be, to quickly react to what's going on in the vineyards.
Absolutely true. And I know every day how lucky we are. And of course, we are really blessed, because it's so easy when I take my tractor and to do the vineyard works. I can do it maybe not fast, but in a very easy way, because it's very close, easy. We have large parcels. So I totally understand and measure the chance we have every day anyway.
So another question for you. I think you're also very well known for the old vines in Le Blanchois in some of the vineyards that go into your vintage cuvées. Do you ever think about having to replant those vines, or what will you do, I guess, when the yield may get too low as the vines get to be 70, 80 years old? What is your, I guess, vision or plan for handling that?
We have done and selected some special vines in Les Blanchevois, mostly a certain part of high and low Blanchevois. And we have done massal selection, and we work with a local nursery plant, nursery vines. And we have replaced, we have made like a co-plantation, if you want. We started like that with the Chardonnay vines. And I'm very sensitive about massal selection. So we use some wood we call a greffon from our vines, and we replant when the vine is dead, or sometime due to the plowing, sometimes it can destroy a vine. So we have to replace it. So this is the way we do.
Okay. So also, one of the interesting things I've always found with you is the pH in your wines tends to consistently be slightly below 3, whereas most winemakers very, very rarely get that low, yet you have good ripeness. And I also think this low pH brings a freshness. It goes well with the oak. It also, I think, mixes well with your dosage. Why do you think you're consistently able to get a lower pH than almost anybody else in Champagne and still get ripeness and still not have to do malolactic fermentation, yet your wines are never too acidic? They're always fresh, they're always bright, and always very lively and fun.
I think it's mainly due to the way we run our the problem of green grass, of the grass. We have always used plowing, which means that that the roots can go deeper, can maybe take all the oligo-elements, etc. from the soil, and maybe it's balanced with another fact. Sometimes you have some harvest where you have to be very careful to determine the right picking date, and I'm very careful about the pH. And we do some maturation analysis before the harvest. And it's true, I always try to keep my pH. So sometimes I don't try to pick too late. Sometimes, not of course like for 01 or for 11, it's another challenge. But I try just to balance both. And the work of the use of plowing is certainly the main reason of our low pH, plus the winemaking in small barrels. and larger cask. It has to decrease a little bit your pH during the winemaking.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me that I think because you have this lower pH, the wines are able to handle newer oak very, very well. And I think they also combine to become something very special with the dosage. There's a lot of people who believe that dosage is bad. Everyone should go to 0, 1, 2, 3 grams. You're not afraid to still use a dosage of 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 grams, depending on the wine. And I think it makes 1 + 1 = 3. And, you know, part of me wonders, as you've seen so many people move to lower dosage, you've kind of stayed firm with this makes the wine better, as to how you came there. And also, what made you and your father move to the smaller oak barrels and start using new oak? Because that was not something normal at the time. And you have mastered it brilliantly. The wines are never oaky. They're always balanced and always fruit forward.
True. My father brought the larger cask in 1970. And when I studied in the 90s for 6 years viticulture and enology, it was the period where I could say 95% of everybody in Champagne think with stainless steel tank. And I traveled during my study in Burgundy, in North Rhone Valley, South, Bandol, Bordeaux. And I noticed, and I was so surprised, that coming back in Champagne, I saw and heard only stainless steel winemaking. Everybody was on that. So I said, my father started a very special way. In 1970, everybody used stainless steel tank, concrete vats, everything you can imagine. And he decided to take another way, not an easy way, a totally different way. So when I saw that in 1990, I decided to say, okay, we make everything in larger casks, so why don't we could improve, or maybe to make something maybe higher, more precise with barrels. And I decided to buy my 21st barrels. It was to Tonnet La Vie, I can't remember. But anyway, now I buy only to Damy. And I started like this with 20 barrels. And it took time just to learn, to feel everything. And step by step, I bought more barrels. And today I'm so happy. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to do one racking. We spend more than 2 weeks with 2 or 3 person to do that. But I feel it's the way of Vilmart and the energy of Vilmart, and this works really, because when you rack in these barrels with no fining, it's just clear, it's just pure, and the balance between the wood and the wine is very integrated. But remember, it's 10 months of winemaking, no malolactic fermentation for the balance, and it's minimum 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years aging in the cellar to integrate this winemaking. So it's always a question of time and new experience. This is very important.
Yeah. So I guess getting into the wines, I mean, you talked about, you know, really one of the first prestige cuvées that was not from a large house was Grand Cellier. And then you really did pretty much the first, you could say, super prestige cuvée with Quarter Cuvée. I guess, where did that concept come from? And I think it's also important for everyone to realize that many people, when they make their prestige cuvée, they have various barrels and tanks from different plots that get blended together. You basically press the grapes right from the vineyard. They go into multiple barrels of, you know, maybe different ages, but Quarter Cuvée is made in the vineyards, which I think is important. But also, what made you come up with the concept that you needed to do something even better than Grand Cellier d'Or? Because to me, that was crazy back in 1989, 1990 for you to think that way.
True. It was thanks my honestly, and thanks to my father and one enologue, they thought about a very high quality cuvee, and they decided to take, why not just the cœur de cuvée, just the heart of the cuvée, which means that we know that the free range use, the 100 first liter or 200 first liter, we call the first pièce, is pretty rich in water, and the end, the 500 last liters, are not noble like the heart of the cuvée, because you need a higher pressure to extract the grape juice, and you are more close to the Thai juice. So if you don't take the right beginning and the end of the cuvée, you take only the heart of the cuvée, which is 1,400 liters, 7 barrels out of 20,050 liters. You make like a double natural concentration. And this was to extract the essence of the grape juice. And we balance and we ferment in new oak Burgundy barrels. But we started, of course, with just 1-year-old barrels. And after, just by learning myself, I decided to balance with 1 to 3 years old barrique, just to make a better balance all together. But you're right, the Cœur de Cuvée is mainly made at the harvest because it's 80% Chardonnay and 20% Pinot Noir. So this is made in barrels, fermentation, and after that's done, the Cœur de Cuvée is done.
Yeah, and it's the Chardonnay and the Pinot together in the barrels.
No, not exactly. I do 4 mar, like a 4 mar or 4,000 kilograms of Chardonnay. So I put in different barrels, and the last mar of Pinot Noir go on the top of the barrels. And it's just after the first racking, I blend the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir. Just after the first racking, which is normally, yes,
okay,
2 weeks or 3 weeks after the end of alcoholic fermentation.
So it's still very different than most people who keep it completely separate until it's time to blend for bottling.
True. My vintage are made mainly like this. I think maybe it's just nature speaks first. I know where it comes from. Only from Blanchevoix, there is this mature, this minerality from Blanchevoix, and maybe suddenly this energy from Blanchevoix, and it's always made for the Cœur de Cuvée and Grand Cellier d'Or.
Okay, very good. So maybe you can tell us all about the range. You know, starting at Grand Reserve, going up through Blanc de Blanc, so everyone can get an understanding of that, and also understand that the Grand Cellier Rubies has a new name, and I think that'd be interesting for people. And then, of course, I think in the Vilmart Lounge there, the ability you have to taste all your wines in so many different glasses is one of, I think, the most wonderful things in the world to do with your collection there.
Yes. So okay. So I can show you, maybe as you ask me, the range first. After we choose the glass and the cuvée. So just a quick step in this new Enotech Vilmart. So let me okay. So the Grande Réserve. The Grande Réserve is 70% Pinot Noir and 30% Chardonnay. It's blend 15, 16, and 17, and basis 17. It's something very round, fruity. And the Grand Cellier is just the opposite. I'm just looking for Grand Cellier, is just there. Is 70% Chardonnay and 30% Pinot Noir. Only Cuvée, the free range juice. And it's 14, 15 reserve wine and 16 bases. And Grand Cellier has a very interesting particularities. It's minimum 2 years of disgorgement to give more harmony to the wine, because this is another fact, another Vilmart characteristic. I like to have a pretty long disgorgement, a pretty long time after disgorgement, and it gives more complexity to my wine. After we have the Grand Cellier d'Or, try to up there. It's 80 Chardonnay, 20 Pinot Noir, only Cuvée from les Blanchevoix, barrels aging, 4 years on the lease. And we have the Cœur de Cuvée, 80 Chardonnay, 20 Pinot Noir, only the heart of the Cuvée, 60 years old vines, and 6 years on the lease. The very, very, very special one is Blanc de Blanc, first vintage 09, so pure Blanchevoix, 60 years old Massal selection, and 8 years on the lease, and between 1 to 2 years of disgorgement. And Grand Cellier Ruby, which is 60% Pinot Noir and 40% Chardonnay, made from Blanchevoix for the Chardonnay and Les Rosières for the Pinot Noir. And just the future new one will be Emotion. I don't know if you can have. It's just the very modern reproduction of Reims local artist called Yemza, and it's we are going to release very soon, and it's vintage 12, which is a very, very balanced vintage. So let me just, I take the opportunity to be here, maybe to take a few bottles of Vilmart and to try to show you. You were talking about glasses. It's true that I like, or I could say I love glasses. I don't know if we have enough light, but we can start with Lehmann, l'Allemand, with the James, with Lehmann number 4, with this is super. It's Superleggero Riedel, very rare. This is Zalto Universal white wine, Yulin, Riedel. One very interesting is Jancis Robinson glasses, very well made, very easy, very cool and open for tasting. Other Lehmann. So just the Vilmart glasses library too.
So this is amazing. So when you visit Vilmart, you have the opportunity to taste your wines out of different glasses, which to me is just an amazing experience to see how different the wine acts. All your cuvées, one may show the best in a Lehmann glass, let's say a Lallemand, one may show best in the Jancis Robinson. I think it's wonderful that you do that and that you have that there in the winery now.
True. Yes. True. We can say now maybe we are very sensitive for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years now about the glasses. The Zalto can put or present your wine very precisely. The James maybe in a more round way. Jancis Robinson I like because it's pretty balanced. A Lehmann glasses number 4, easy, and it presents well. And yes, it's true. It can change, and it changed anyway the taste of your wine, or anyway the presentation of your wine.
Yeah. So just to be clear for everyone, so the Grand Cellier de Ruby is becoming the Cuvée Emotion. And I guess another question to you, Laurent. I know you get it a lot, and I've seen it in the chat. People want to know what happened to Cuvée Création. Where did it go? Where did it get in the rain? And I know you get that a lot, but I've seen it going through there, so I wanted to ask that.
True. Cuvée Création was a very, very specific cuvée. We started the first time with my father with the vintage. I was just arriving, 1990 to 2000. I wanted maybe to, I can't say maybe to say thank you to my father, because I told you he was not a wine grower or winemaker at the beginning. He was a carpenter and a drawer and writer. After he became a wine grower for my biggest change, because he got married with my mother. So it was pretty a good thing. And he became a wine grower. After he became, just before his retirement, a stained glasses maker. So I wanted to maybe to blend two art, winemaking, and stained glass. So we decided to make a special cuvee, and the art of stained glass is just the transmission between maybe the sun, the light, as you can say, when we have the light, and we represent the glasses, but on a crystal, on a clear bottle. So we made that for 7 vintages, for 10 years. But when I knew that the making of clear glass is not really ecologic and it's so sensitive to the light, I decided to stop that. And one funny thing is when you decide to stop something, everybody wants this cuvee, of course. So we stopped in 2000, but be safe. I kept few bottles in my cellar on the tech, like 95, 97, and 2000, and it becomes more and more amazing and outstanding, really. But honestly, I'm pretty happy to stop that, because wine can be so sensitive, and I don't want to go in that challenge. So to reply to the question, where goes the juice, the grape juice of Cuvée creation? Thanks to that, I improved the quality of Grand Cellier and Grand Cellier d'Or, because at the very, very beginning, it becomes from a barbette. So now I use for Grand Cellier, mainly for Grand Cellier.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I love the Cuvée creation, and the 95 I have here is drinking just beautifully right now. And I'll get to a question on that in a second. But I do agree, when you stop the creation, the Grand Reserve, the Grand Cellier went up in quality a notch, because Grand Cellier had better juice, which left better juice for Grand Reserve. And even though the Grand Reserve doesn't come all that much to the United States, it is a great, great wine. And I would say one of the best buys in the Champagne region, especially at a Magnum. Even though if you don't see it, that's a really, really excellent wine. But another question for you is on the 1995 and 1996 vintages. In 1995, even though I think it's a wonderful vintage, there was no Cours de Cuvée. There was only a Cuvée creation. So what were your thoughts at the time on 1995 versus 1996? And have you adjusted or changed them at all? Do you wish you would have made a Cours de Cuvée in 1995?
You're absolutely right. We had no Cours de Cuvée in 94 and 95. You're absolutely right, because we started in 89. So it was a very, very high prestige cuvée. We started the Cours de Cuvée, no 94 vintage, because it was not the right one vintage for Cours de Cuvée. And 95, I'm not a great fan of 95, and I prefer to don't make Cours de Cuvée in 94 and 95. We have creation 95. To be really honest, for a long time, I was not a great fan of 95 Cuvée creation, and only today it becomes really more harmonious, more balanced, more rich and more balanced. So today, yes, I really like the 95 creation. And you take your decision. We said patient, humility, you need a little bit experience, and sometimes you need one very important thing, intuition sometimes. So maybe my intuition 94, 95 was not to make Cours de Cuvée.
Yeah, but you still made it in 2001, and that wine is drinking brilliantly. Even though it doesn't like being sabered, the cork finally did pop off of it. This is a beautiful wine from '01. Your 2011 is brilliant. So, do you now challenge yourself in every year to make Cours de Cuvée? Because it seems no matter the vintage, you're able to pull something very special out of it.
True. You know, one friends from the Aube, Aurélien Gerbet, told me one thing a few years ago. He told me, you know, Laurent, everybody says it's easy to make vintage every year, but it's totally wrong. It's very challenging. And he told me that to make a vintage every year, it's very hard because you have to play with the nature. So of course you can tell me 2002, 08, 12, 19, so easy to make a vintage. It's made itself. But we can talk about 01, 11. 11 is a very challenging one. Maybe champagne growers wanted to pick too early. I waited 5-6 days longer than the other. I got certainly a better maturity, better aromatic complexity. But one more thing, now I understood, and not really in 11. I understood that when you taste now Cœur de Cuvée 11, just brilliant, more balanced, but the Grand Cellier Ruby 11 is just fantastic because we took the time to age in the cellar and to age after disgorgement. And today, we tasted yesterday Grand Cellier Ruby 11. It was just brilliant, but 4 years of disgorgement. And it's just harmonious. It's creamy, it's balanced, so easy to taste it. And sometimes, maybe on specific, challenging, hard vintage, if you can be patient, you can win at the end. You can.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point.
True. Yeah.
Brad, we're just a time check. We're at top of the hour. Do we want to start to transition to Q&A with the audience and let some people interact with Laurent?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I guess, Laurent, if you want to show everybody what you pulled out of the Onotech there, I think people might be interested in that as well.
What I want to pour, correct, no?
Yeah, what bottles did you take out of the Onotech? What are you going to be drinking?
We have, I thought you were talking about Grand Cellier d'Or 13, but we can we can go with the Cœur de Cuvée 02 if you want.
Whatever you're thirsty for.
Okay, so Cœur de Cuvée 02. You know, you asked me a question. Why I didn't make Cœur de Cuvée 94 and 95. So I told you, and honestly, I don't regret. But one thing I regret absolutely is that in 2002 I didn't make Magnum of Cœur de Cuvée, and this is a big mistake. But I think I was too young. You say I was too young, so and you have to learn. And believe me, I'm still learning every day.
Yeah,
so,
did you have Magnums of 96? I've never seen a Magnum of 96 Cours de Cuvée either.
I think I have really few. Really few. Now I try to keep. I try to keep more Magnum. I made a special Magnum in a tech, and now I try to keep minimum 60 or 80 Magnum of Cœur de Cuvée and Grand Cellier d'Or every vintage. Right. We have really golden, very yellow gold color, and it's Right. You see, you have a lot of structure, density, intensity. And I can remember 2002. It's easy to remember this, I can say today, this perfect vintage, perfectly balanced, because you have 2200. You see, it's just the perfect balance. And we had the right maturity, the right ripeness, the perfect balance, sugar, acids, and the structure of the wine. And O2 is still aging brilliantly because it's very rich. It's a very gourmand wine. You have even a little bit cinnamon, gingerbread, même un petit peu crème pâtissière. I don't know exactly how you say in English, but and it always still alive.
Excellent. You're going to make me open another bottle.
Yeah.
I feel like a peasant with my 13 Grand Cellar d'Or in my glass here.
No. Frank, no. Easy. Every wine has his own identity, every cuvee, from Vilmart, from any champagne growers or winemaker, of course. It's just a question of moment, of pleasure, of with who you share, and you want just to give pleasure and just to exchange. But the best reward is just when you taste a wine like this and you say, wow, it's still just gorgeous. And we are very lucky. We are very lucky, honestly.
When do you release the 2012 Cours de Cuvée? When will it hit United States?
It's a very good question. You know what? It should be very soon. It should be very soon. Honestly, I have still some Cours de Cuvée 11, and it's funny because I was thinking last day, maybe I will keep a certain amount of Cours de Cuvée 11 in Unotech, just to show to everybody, to prove to everybody that this vintage is incredible by aging. It's better and better and better.
Yes.
So to try to reply you, Frank, maybe it will depend on the evolution of the situation, but I don't know, maybe, I hope so, maybe for next summer, something like that, something like this.
Well, I will be putting it in my cellar, lots of it.
Yes, thank you. I know that there is a big inquiry, a big demand on 12. 12 was from maybe the 10 last year, the best vintage with the highest maturity anyway. And 12 is very, very, very good.
Yeah. Well, just wait for 19. 19 will probably be even more demand than 12.
God willing.
I agree. I agree. You know my feeling about 19, yes. For me, I hope not too many people listen, but for me, 19 is like a small O2. It was just like a melody, like a symphony. It was just balanced, rich, intense, fresh, and full body. So yes, 19 is really great. Of course.
Yeah, we just have to wait 10 years or so, but I'm happy to wait. So I don't know, do you want to go ahead, and I'm sure there's lots of people who have some questions for Laurent.
Yes. Okay. All right, everybody. Now's your chance to raise your hand. I saw a few questions in the chat, and I reached out to a couple people just saying that you can wait for the Q&A and then you can ask Laurent directly. So fine. Usually the raise hand function is somewhere at the bottom of your screen where it's near the participants section, but depends on what kind of system you're working on. Just raise your hand and then I can unmute you and you can ask your question. Shockingly, here we go. We got David with one, but I'll dig up the ones that I've seen, make sure that they know how to raise their hand. Okay, David Bucher, you can go first.
All right, thank you. Hello, Laurent.
Hello, David.
Sorry we won't probably see you in New York this year, but it's good to see you here. Question, you talked about most of your champagne blending percentages, like the 80% Chardonnay, 20% Pinot. Is that always set, or do you vary it, up and down a few percentage each year, just depending on the conditions?
Yes, it's true. I write 80-20 to be very frank. Sometimes it can be 75, 78. So I mean, it's more the spirit, if you say, okay. I prefer to give maybe simple and easy figures or numbers rather than something very, very precise. And it doesn't change really the things with the 3, 4, 5%, honestly. But to reply to your question, yes, I do it with my what I have in volume, in quality, and of course there is always a slight variation. But I try to respect this balance, because the 2/3 or 1/3 of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, it balances really well for Grand Nazaire or for Grand Cellier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
David.
A question that came in that he's not raising his hand, not sure if he knows how, is can you tell us from where you get your oak barrels?
No.
From Coche-Thérie?
Yes, hello?
You're there.
What is that?
Oh, that, yeah, who's calling that? Oh, that's Dan. He's open. Here we go, Dan. Go for it.
Hi. Salut Laurent, ça va?
Oui, salut Dan, ça va et toi?
Hi, merci bien. So I know it's getting a bit geeky about your oak barrels, but I wanted to ask you if you wouldn't mind tell you where you got your oak barrels from. I know you're a big fan of Meursault, but I'm also wondering what particular role these specific oak barrels play. Maybe there's a particular structural issue or creaminess or aromatic. I just love to hear your thoughts on that and what is very particular about the way you use your oak barrels.
The barrels come from Damy Cooper in Meursault, and I always buy with only wine, which means just 6 or 7 months old, just to get rid of the strong tannin. And after, when they come here, I use and I keep it for 6 or 7 years. The 3 first year for the Cœur de Cuvée, and the 3, 4 last year for the Grand Cellier d'Or. This Damy is a very specific cooper because it gives not a strong tannin, but very delicate. And it gives a certain slight roundness to your wine. I never want to change the taste of my wine. A very good friend of mine says the wood is a good servant but a bad master, and I know he's absolutely right. This is very important. And just to go a little bit further, and the new larger cask you saw just at the beginning of the interview comes from Rousseau, Tonnerie Rousseau, and they are very, very good for making a large oak cask. I went to Burgundy to visit them, and I tasted some larger cask of 10 hectoliters, which is the smallest one, because under we are more talking about demi-muit and barrels, and just at 1,000 liters we are talking about food, and this gives just the right balance, no strong tannin.
You good, Dan? Good.
Yeah,
All right.
Dan.
All right. Next we have Santa, and you are unmuted.
Hey,
Hello, Santa. How are
hey,
you?
Laurent. How are you?
I'm
Just
really fine. Thank you.
You're so good looking tonight, and 10 days, and we are here again in the live stream in online tasting. Such a wonderful night. Thanks, guys, for organizing. Just wanted to catch your view and tell that I'm happy to be here, and cheers, guys.
Thank you very
No
much.
questions.
Thank you.
It's everything really wonderful.
And thank you
Cheers.
for the last time. And thank you so much. And thank you.
Yeah, it's just
Thank you, Santa.
nice to see you. Yeah, all guys. Yeah. Cheers.
I'm not sure.
Cheers. Take care.
Laurent, have you even been able to sip any of your champagne that you opened?
Sorry.
Have you had any?
Yes,
Did you
sure,
ship
sure.
any? Yeah.
Of course, yes. I just it's cœur de Cuvée too. It's
Oh, I know, but
just
have you
delicious.
had any yet? I think you've only smelled it for us. You haven't tasted any, have you?
I guess. Believe me, I tasted 3 times.
Oh, good. Okay.
Believe
Okay.
me.
Yeah. So Laurent, I guess building kind of on Dan's question about the barrels, you have various sizes. You obviously you have the larger Foudre, you have the more classic Barrique, but you also have the demi-muid. I guess where do you see all the different sizes of the barrels fitting in, and do you think certain sizes work better with certain of the cuvées? What are your thoughts on the differing sizes of the barrels?
Large oak casks are fantastic for non-vintage because you understand this is the Cuvée and the Champagne. We are really seeing the faster, if I can say. Then the barrels, 228 liters for Cœur de Cuvée, Grand Cellier d'Or, and Grand Cellier are very good because, of course, you have a higher exchange. You have more wood with less volume. But as it aged 6 years or 7 years on the lease, it matched really well. A new size I have tried now for 3 years is the 10 hectoliter, 1,000 liters food new. They are very interesting. They give you intensity, maybe structure, and it's the right balance between the volume and the size of the barrels and the wood. And as it aged, mainly for the Blanc and for one future cuvée, I will release maybe in 6 or 7 years. It will be a surprise. This, as it aged 7 or 8 years on the lease, you get this integration because you have to be sometimes very, very careful. The wood is so interesting with for the micro oxygenation, but you need time to integrate it. And this you can do it on the lease, and after disgorgement, and sometimes it needs time. So every size, every volume, like larger cars, like the food of 1,000 liters, or the barrels, yes, they have all their expression and identity. It's absolutely true.
No, very good. Thank you.
Okay, we've got, well, Frank wants to ask a question before I go with the people who are raising their hands, and because of all the hard work he puts into this, I'll give him the floor.
Thank you to the Wine Berserkers house there. Laurent, my question is a bit specific, but not complex, and that is when you look at Grand Cellier and Grand Cellier d'Or, and they're composed pretty much the same with 70-80% Chardonnay, and dosage similar. What's the separation or the key distinction between the two, other than the additional lease time that d'Or has? Is there any other differences?
Oh, yes, there are. You're right. Grand Cellier is a non-vintage. Grand Cellier d'Or is a vintage, which means you have on Grand Cellier d'Or the specific identity of the year of the vintage. Grand Cellier d'Or is made with 50 years old vines. Grand Cellier is more with 30 and 35 years old vines. And winemaking, 10 months, you're right, both, but Grand Cellier d'Or in barrels, 228 liters, and Grand Cellier in large oak cask.
Okay.
Well, mainly that. And I could say maybe 1 year more on the lease for the Grand Cellier d'Or, same time of, no, 1 year of disgorgement for Grand Cellier d'Or and 2 years of disgorgement for Grand Cellier.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we got Steve Nordhoff. You are unmuted, buddy.
Excellent. Thank you, Laurent. Many of you know we're big fans here. I probably had almost all of your wines with one exception, the Blanc de Blanc. I was curious about that and how that wine came about and what future vintages we will see.
Good question.
Okay. Thank you
Bring a
very
little
much.
04 Rubies too. Thank you.
Cheers, enjoy. Yes, Blanc de Blanc. Be safe. Huh? It's could say a new baby of Vilmart. It's true. So the first release was the vintage 2009. I think maybe there is maybe few left in the USA, or you will see. I have few left in my cellar, so it's still possible to get some. Blanc de Blanc is very, very specific. It's the pure Chardonnay mineral of 09. Very good maturity, very good balance in 09. And this wine, this cuvee, is very specific because it aged 1 year more than the Cœur de Cuvée, so 7 years, and it has minimum 2 years of disgorgement. So you have a wine very, very precise, fresh, mineral, with a structure and with a certain gourmandise, and it is extra brut, Blanc de Blanc. So this wine can afford 2, 3, 4 years of maturation easily. But 09 is so great to taste now, and you can wait before to taste it if you are patient. And the next vintage is 2011. So I produced not a big quantity, only 2,100 bottles, and it's just we just start to release this new vintage. And believe me, it's excellent too.
I'll be looking for it.
By the way, Nordhoff, I blame
Thank
you
you.
for all the Vilmar in my cellar, because without you, I wouldn't even know this label.
Great stuff, man.
I know it. I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Nordhoff is to blame for a lot of people buying Vilmar.
Yeah,
actually,
that's for sure.
He's a real pusher of Vilmar.
Doesn't take much effort.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you to you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
All right, we've got Joel Singer. You are unmuted.
Thanks, Frank. Hi, Laurent.
Hi, Joel.
How are you tonight, I guess, for you?
Really fine, because I'm with you. I'm with Brad, with everybody, and with a nice glass of champagne. So everything is fine. And you, how are you?
I'm excellent. Still working time here, even though it's Saturday, but this was a great break from work.
Cool.
And I just want to ask you about the non-vintage Cuvée Ruby. Are you continuing that wine, and a little bit different how the differences are between the winemaking between the vintage and the non-vintage Cuvée Ruby?
Yes, I'm still making some Cuvée Ruby, which is a non-vintage, and this one is made by assemblage, if you want, assemblage of Pinot Noir red wine, skin maceration, something like 15%, and the final blend is 90% of Pinot Noir and 10% of Chardonnay. It's a cuvée. It's made about the fruit, cherries fruit, a red fruits flavor. It's just easy to taste, and it's a non-vintage rosé. The vintage rosé is different. It's like maybe if you compare a Grande Réserve and a Cœur de Cuvée. Cuvée Ruby and Grand Cellier Ruby is like this, because I'm playing on a specific vintage with more Chardonnay to give more elegance, more finesse. And as I said before, I played on the disgorgement time in the same time. And this make a huge difference of structure, of maturity, of expression, anyway.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Sean Sidney, you're unmuted.
Hi, thanks so
Here
much.
you go.
Laura, I know this is sort of a big topic, but you were a grower champagne sort of before it was in fashion or before it was cool. So can you talk about the way the sort of culture of grower champagnes has changed in the region, and maybe give us a couple of your favorite other grower champagnes that you enjoy?
Sure. You're right. I was thinking every year, because I like to run. I like to run. Maybe not every evening, but I can notice now for 10 years mainly in Rie-la-Montagne, Montagne de Reims, and in general in Champagne. If you run in the vineyards 10, 15 years ago, you saw a lot of vineyards treated with herbicides. And today, honestly, if it stay, I don't know, 5% like that, all the others are with plowing or with grass. And this has really changed. Now for 10 years, the Champagne area has totally changed in their way and in their mind to try to produce in a more sustainable way. This is true, and it's a totally fact. And yes, you ask me, which it's very hard to reply to your question, because I will make some challenge, maybe, or I don't know, because I will forget some certain person. But yes, it's true. I like the champagne of all my friends, like Didier Gimonet, Jean-Baptiste Geoffroy, Fred Savard, all the artisans du champagne, Jackson, which is a beautiful house, and with a lot of structure, a lot of identity, and you know, I think, without to reply to your question, I could say the richness of the champagne is all the diversity of their winegrower and winemaker is the most important things. It's true. And you?
Thank you very much.
What is your favorite for you?
Oh man.
Oh no.
You see, it's not an easy
Vilmar.
question.
Of course it's Vilmar.
Love that. The question.
love
You are not obliged to say that.
Growers. I mean, I've had only one or two Ulysse Collin, but I love his champagne. I think it's just brilliant and really like singular and like an incredible identity to his wines.
True, yeah. And you know, and the tasting, maybe sometimes it depends of you feeling with who you are, etc., and the moment. But the most important is that the wine has to tell you something, to tell you a story, to give you something. Anyway, I think.
That's tough. I mean, Sean, you just got called out by Laurent. That's you were on stage there, buddy. Wow. All right.
Rough time.
You're next.
Real quickly, I just want to add something to what Laurent said. You know, talking about other growers he may admire, there's one person close by who the wines aren't the same, but a similar level of precision. I think everyone should go out and pay attention to Francois Huret in Lude.
True.
I also have some Blancois as well. Just the same thought process, amazing man. I like to tell him, to me, he's like a Laurent Champs Jr. Different wines, but the same precision and attention to detail in the vines and the winery. So remember that name. He's an artisan too.
Yeah.
Put it down in the chat, Brad, so we can all see it. It's easier that way. Okay. All right. So Yuri, you are up.
Hey, Yuri.
Hello, Laurent. How are you?
Good. I'm fine, Yuri. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And you?
Good.
Hello.
And yes, and hello everyone. Thank you for organizing this, and it's great to see you all. And my question is that it looks like each plot of the vineyards are decided for specific cuvées, at least for some extent, like between Grand Reserve and Grand Cellar. Is so, right?
Sorry, you could you just repeat the end, because my line is not very good.
Okay, each plot of the vineyards are specific for each cuvée for some extent, right? And how do you decide this plot is for example, Grand Reserve, and this is for Grand Cellar?
Sure. You're right. You're right. It's done specifically for the parcel, for Grand Cellar, for Cœur de Cuvée and Grand Cuvée. But for Grand Reserve and Grand Cellar, I do separately all grape juice, put in the larger cask, and in April, May, I taste each still wine, okay? And by the tasting, I decide this one will go for the Grand Cellar, this one will go for the Grand Reserve. Every time, every year, okay? So, to be honest, I taste in October, in November, in December, every month, and I can see the evolution of the wine. And when, during this period now, April, May, I decide the final destination of each still wine, and I decide by tasting.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. And then Jules, you are next. I'm going to unmute you now. Whoops. Hold on. Now try again. Jules? Jules Michel Bloom. I hear some background noise. Jules, is that you?
True.
There we go.
We can't hear you guys.
Your audio's not working. Your microphone's not working well. We can barely hear you. Not really. Like, even if you scream into it, we can barely hear it. He'll get back, he says. Okay. All right. That's fun. That's the first time we've seen that happen. Okay. If you want to type it in, Jules, you want to type in your question? Okay. And we'll just wait for him to type that in. And since he's on screen, you can still see him. So it's as if he was saying it. They were both yelling into the computer to no avail. Type faster, Jules. Let's go.
Todd's got yard work to do. Hurry up.
Yeah. Oh, what bottle would you open with your dad? Is this question, Laurent?
Oh,
me?
Yes, for you, Laurent. What bottle would you open with your dad? That's nice.
We like to open all Cœur de Cuvée, but honestly, it's not a secret. Sometimes I open Cuvée Creation 92, 95, or sometimes 96, and he's so happy with that because he knows that this cuvée is a part of himself because he made so many stained glass. So when we open a bottle of Cuvée Creation, he's really, really, really happy.
That's a good question, Jules. That's worth waiting to get asked. That's a great question to end with as well. That's the perfect question to end with. Frank and Brad, I want to turn it over to you guys again.
Yeah, I'll let Brad make a few closing comments, and then I'll wrap up and wish everybody well.
No, I want to just tell Laurent thank you, and I want to say thank you to Yuri as well for spending the middle of the evening with us all the way from Japan. It's good to see you, Yuri. Sorry it's not in Champagne. So we've got a great global crew on board. We have Dan as well. We have Santa. So we've got all of Europe. It's wonderful how, Laurent, you've united the whole world in this time of crisis. So thank you. It just shows the international language of Champagne. Again, this has been a great way to spend the afternoon. I've learned things. I hope everybody here has learned things. So again, thank you, Laurent, for sharing your time, your winery, and your passion with all of us. And Todd and Frank, thanks for setting this up. It's amazing what you guys have created here.
No, just my pleasure. And just before to say bye-bye, I saw a small comment, and it's true. I forgot my friend Rodolphe Peters, and it's true that Rodolphe is very, very precise with a lot of energy. Huh? You know him, and it's true. He has a special, very identity for Côte des Blancs, and I like and love his wine, of course. So anyway, thank you so much to you, Brad, to Frank, and to Todd. So happy to share this moment with you, and take care of you, and I wish you all the best, and hope to see you soon, and maybe we can finish on just that. Do you see that? It's it's just the Sisyphe myth, as maybe every day or every year is like a new white page, and I'm sure we can build a new one and good things for the future anyway. So I wish you all the best, and take care of you, and hope to see you soon. And
God bless you, Laurent. That was a great way to finish.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Laurent.
And God,
I was going to call Rudolph, and I was going to tell Rudolph you didn't mention him, and he'd be angry.
Oh yeah, no. No, he knows me anyway.
Yeah, one final comment. Laurent is a member of the Artisans du Champagne organization. It's, I think, a wonderful group of growers. If you want to know some top growers out there, Fred Savart, Rudolph Peters, Nicolas Maillart, Francois Heuret, Jean-Paul Hebron, Margain, et cetera, Gerbai, who you mentioned earlier. Go visit the website if you're not familiar with them. Sure. It's a fabulous group. They make wonderful wines from all over Champagne. All of them have different flavors, expressions to them, but there's not a better group that's out there. So I just want to go ahead and mention that group as well for people who want to explore more.
Of course. And this glass is for all my friends of Artisans du Champagne. And we will celebrate our 10th anniversary next year with you and all the Champagne fans with great pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll do this again.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.